A message from our sponsor, Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service. Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service has been your trusted marine supplier servicing the upper Mississippi River for over 25 years. Since 1998, they have grown to be one of the largest inland boat stores. They are not just a delivery service. They have what you need in stock and ready to order. Their office and warehouse are centrally located in Bellevue, Iowa, and with their fleet of specially built delivery boats and refrigerated vehicles, Riverview can conveniently deliver groceries anywhere on the Upper Miss or the Illinois. Their green and white tugs can be found up and down the Mississippi, and they operate one of the largest lock assist businesses on the Upper Miss with 12 tugs servicing tows from Hastings, Minnesota to Clinton, Iowa. Their website now includes online grocery ordering with monthly specials available for review or download, and their fleet equipment information and vessel telephone numbers can also be found there. Like them on Facebook at Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service, and check out their website at www.riverviewboatstore.com. Welcome back to Between the Levees. We'll start with what we know. My guest today is Jared Ward. He's an assistant engineer now for ACBL. He was a deckhand for Mr. James Edwards, who appeared on this show on episode 52 a few months back. We're going to get into it and see where it goes. Jared, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, how's it going?
Going just fine. What did you think of the show? I know you said you watched James's episode.
Whenever I first saw that James was on the episode, and I appreciated him for shouting me out, actually, and I didn't really expect to be on the show myself, but after watching his episode, I found it kind of interesting. Started looking more into the podcast ordeal here, and I didn't really think I'd find myself on it, but here I am. I'll give it my shot.
Well, I did forget to mention you're joining us from almost 70 acres. Which,
yes, correct.
Probably the nicest view I've had on the show so far. But anyway, let's begin where it all started. Where were you born?
I was born in Huntington, West Virginia, right across the river from Proctorville, Ohio in 2002, right down the river from Gallipolis and Point Pleasant, Ohio.
And what did your parents do for a living?
My father was an HVAC man entire life. He's always been in HVAC. And my mother is like home and health care. She goes and takes care of the elderly and whatnot. She's done that as long as I can remember. Before that, she just had little odd jobs here and there. But
what about grandparents? Was anybody in the industry?
No, actually, I had nobody in the industry to even guide me out here. Actually, I had my girlfriend at the time. Her brother was a captain for Marathon, and he talked me into becoming a deckhand. Well, I tried to apply for Marathon at the time. They weren't hiring. So, well, I was dead set on being a deckhand at the time. And I really wanted to come out here and start work. So I applied for ACBL and they gave me a job.
And what year was that?
That was 2021. I did all my application in 2020, the end of 2020, and got hired in January of 21.
Okay, well, let's back up a little ways. Tell me about your childhood growing up down there.
Childhood, growing up, spend all my time out in the country. I've been in this little area around between Gallipolis and Proctorville, Ohio for my entire life. Haven't went anywhere else. Just enjoy the country living, hunting, fishing, sports growing up, real small school. I think my entire high school and middle school together was about 250 people through my entire years of school. I grew up working on cars. That's actually how I got into wanting to be a mechanic and wrenching on things. I got a job working with my uncle. He had a mechanic shop actually, and I started weed eating for him. And when I was real young, and he wouldn't let me touch the cars, because he didn't know. He wasn't sure I could work on anything. Then he was like, "Well, why don't you just come in the garage and help me out a little bit?" All right, well, I'll start working with you there. And through the summer, I just continued working with him and got to my senior year in high school, and I wanted to become a mechanic. So I went to diesel technician school, University of Northwestern Ohio, right after I graduated high school. And from there, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. At the same time, I was being talked into becoming a deckhand. So I told him, I wanted to work on things, and he said, "Well, you can just go to the boat and you can work on on bigger engines and stuff. I was like, well, I've never really worked on them kind of things. And um, from that point forward, I was like, all right, that sounds like a plan to me, really. I mean, we'll give it a shot. So finished my schooling in Northern Ohio, Lima, Ohio, and started on the river as a deckhand.
Anything interesting to share about your time in school?
No, no, I just I worked on big semi trucks, and I knew nothing about anything to do with the river industry. As a matter of fact, still yet I was blind to the whole side of things. I went through transmission classes, electric classes, AC classes, live dead engines, and um, I felt pretty confident in working on any of them kind of engines. But as far as going out on the river and working, that was still beyond me.
So ACBL says, sure, we could use your help. Tell me about the onboarding and training process.
The onboarding training process, it started in Convent, Louisiana. They got a hold of me, said, we're going to send you to training for a week down there, and we'll find you a boat. So I go to training, and they put me through. It was pretty good training. Actually, I was still, little did I know what I would actually be getting into on the river. You never actually know till you get there, I learned. But they did a good job in Convent, and I got out there, and I had to go through a period of time where I had a book of things I needed to learn before I could be cut loose as a deckhand on my own. I had some very good teaching when I was out there. My mate and lead man did a good job at showing me what to do and what not to do. A lot of what not to do too, but they were very good teachers. And once I got cut loose, I started making my way towards the engine room.
Was that about a 2 week training period in the convent dorm?
It used to be 2 weeks. They cut it down to a week at the time. Whenever I got in, it was right around COVID time, so they was just pushing people through, getting them in and out.
What boats did you end up getting on in the fleet there?
In the fleet at Convent, or as soon as I
Right.
went.
In
Uh,
training.
well, in training, I didn't actually go to a boat. They just had a training pad outside. We walked over to the fleet, and we was able to go to Tiger and step on barges, and they could show us how to wire in some couplings, high lows, that kind of thing. But I never was able to step on a boat.
And was your first boat with James?
Yes, that's correct. I started out with James. He was a steersman, finishing up his steersman at the time.
Well, tell me about your first time setting foot on a boat out there on the river.
I stepped foot on the boat. I didn't really know what to think. It was a completely different environment, actually. It was a very nice boat, well kept boat. The guys were very welcoming. I get on there, and the first time meeting James, he was on his way up to the wheelhouse. Um, and I went up there to talk to him and the captain, and they talked to me a lot about what I thought about the boat, and asked me about my plans and whatnot. And I told them all of what I planned on doing, and they were just all real welcoming for the whole thing.
Well, tell me about well, it's only 2 years into your career, so I guess fill me in on some details. Are you an assistant engineer on the same boat?
No, no, actually, I started helping my chief engineer on that boat, the WT2 Taunt, which is now the Dan Thomas. I started helping him out as much as I could. His name was Johnny Darnell. And he's like, so you're serious about getting in the engine room? And I told him absolutely. I helped him every chance I could, on, off watch. I stayed in, putting in just extra hours back there, just taking in everything I possibly could. Um, and after I finished my time that I had to be on deck, the minimum amount of time, which was a year, I started putting in. I had my lead man book signed off, and I turned that in, as well as my application to the engine room. And I just told him, I wrote him a letter and let him know I didn't really plan. I didn't know if it was going to work out getting in this time or not, because I know they're looking for more experienced guys. And I just told him, if you don't accept me now, I'm going to go ahead and apply again. So take with what you will with that, and I'm just going to keep going. So from that point, they accepted me. I was just shocked that they accepted me at such a young age and low experience level, and not long on deck. It was about a year and 3 months on deck when I got accepted, and I was just thankful. I was ready to go. So they sent me not too long after that to Cairo for my engineering training class.
Before we get too far into the engine room there, tell me about that year and 3 months on deck. Where were you running? What was your favorite thing to see? What was your least favorite thing to do? Stuff like that.
Well, our boat was a utility boat. We ran mostly the upper Mississippi, Illinois, and Ohio rivers. Very rarely we did take a trip down the lower, but usually we stayed up on the upper rivers. And honestly, the thing I miss is locking. I love making locks and stuff on them upper rivers and the Ohio River. It was just peaceful, calm. Um, Now the Illinois, I have not seen so many bald eagles on the Illinois or anywhere else than I have on the Illinois. I would say that was just crazy to me going up there and just the amount of freedom, I guess you'd say, on that river. It was pretty awesome. Least favorite thing to do, um, waking up every other watch for tow work. The typical deckhand story, but I enjoyed it. It taught me a lot of hard work, kept me dedicated, kept me busy. Um, I did enjoy all the times up there working on them locking rivers for sure.
What was the most surprising thing you've seen out there so far?
The most surprising thing, honestly, the fact that how well people work together whenever you're out there. You've never met a guy in your life, as well. You get to know people going up and down the river, working with them. But for me, like they knowing I was brand new out there, they were still welcoming, willing to teach me some things that they knew that I didn't know. Them passing down the experience.
And did you not have any interest in the wheelhouse? Do you still not?
Well, actually, I did have interest in the wheelhouse. I still do have interest in the wheelhouse, but I'd like to go a few years in the engine room. I'd like to get to chief engineer A position before I even think about anything in the wheelhouse. With James, actually, I did as I was getting my lead man packet done. I'd go up there and he'd let me hold the sticks for a little bit. um, he let me learn a little bit about what was going on up there. He showed me a good bit of things, and we talked about it and all, and I was just excited to go into the engine room. But I would still like to get some seat time in up there, and hopefully maybe one day go up there.
How many engines and what horsepower was the boat?
Our boat was 6,500 horsepower on the Dan Thomas. They're General Electric engines. They were just replaced with the Alco engine, or the Alco engines were the old engines on there, and they was replaced with the GEs. The boat I'm on now actually has EMDs. We don't do the General Electric. There's not as many GE boats on the lower as there is EMD. I'll say that.
I guess tell me what you can. What's a day in the life of an assistant engineer?
Of the assistant engineer, well, you keep the chief engineer that's training you happy is basically what you want to do there. Taking everything you can from the chief engineer that is training you. You keep your engine room clean. It's easier to spot anything that would go wrong in your engine room, as far as leaks or anything broken, rattling around. It's just best to keep everything clean is the most important part as an engineer, assistant engineer. Um, you make the chief's life easy.
What kind of tasks are you doing for him?
Um, as far as tasks, I'm servicing generators, main engines. I'm keeping oil in them, water in them. Steering, I want to inspect the steering every week. I got to grease the steering parts. Make sure all the fire equipment is working properly. As far as the cabin of the boat, make sure anything in the galley is working. Make sure the cook's happy. Um, and then just do regular routine maintenance, make your rounds every hour on the hour, and keep everything clean. That's about the gist of that.
What does deckhand retention look like from your perspective over the last 2 years?
um the deckhands, they're becoming more scarce in the entire industry, as a matter of fact. The deckhands aren't just, they're not coming out and really wanting to work. They get out there and they get on a boat to where they got a little bit of work going on, and just they stop in their tracks, they freeze up, they don't know what to do. They get out there and immediately they're like, well, I want to go to the wheelhouse, but they don't want to put in the work of you know of what needs to be done to get to where they want to go. And that's the main issue. They'll go out there and they'll start something, but they won't finish, or they won't proceed with what they said that they wanted to do. They just get lazy when you lay down. And that's not all deckhands, that's speaking from my perspective. Nobody, they'll come back to the engine room and say, "Hey, how do I get here?" And then that's the last time you see them for 2 weeks. They don't want to come back and help to get to the engine room even. But they're not even applying to become a deckhand even, as much as they were, back when I started. I was on a waiting list when I started. Now basically they've took down any kinds of setbacks for deckhands. You go apply and basically you're a warm body, you get a job.
Well, what do you propose to do to improve recruitment and retention? How would you recommend that maybe a career path be defined for these guys?
uh you know Defining the career path for a new deckhand is, it's kind of hard to do. You can't really explain, and sometimes it sounds good and grand from the shore side, but once they get out there and they learn what you actually do, it's not necessarily what they was looking for, and they decide that that's not the right path for them. But in all reality, I mean, you go out there and you got some guys that they did decide that's what's for them. Um, those are the ones that stick around, and that's usually within the first trip. If they get out there in the first trip, it's not for them. That's the end of it for them. They don't. Um, I'm trying to think of the best way to word what you're asking me here. Um, I would describe the career path is you're working 6 months out of the year, and you're off for 6 months out of the year. Regular rotation for just line haul boats. You can't really beat the off time. Any other job, you're only working, like I said, 6 months, 28 days on, 28 days off. Um, you you can't beat that as far as time off, and the pay. Depending on the company, some are better, some are worse, but it's pretty reasonable pay starting out. Now it's starting to get better as well. I've had several just regular yearly raises within the couple years I've been here. I've had two, and I've only been out here 2 years and a couple months. But as far as pay and time off, you can't really beat this kind of work.
And are you married?
No, I'm not actually, not yet. I just got engaged in September of 2022. So I will be married before too long. I can't really say much about the married life out there, but I've heard that it only gets better. But
Well, tell me about I guess the dating and the engaged life, trying to be out there a month at a time.
well, I've had the same girlfriend and fiance since high school. I came out of high school with her. I have a good one. She's willing to wait. Now, if you find one that's willing to wait for you till you get back, supportive of the whole career, that's what you're really looking for out there. Or you can just, it's a single man's dream, really. If you want to stay single and go work out in this industry, then that's the move for a single man. Um, as far as having a family and getting to see friends and family and whatnot, yeah, you're gonna miss a lot of things, but you're gonna be there for just as many things. I've had no issues. She's very supportive of me. I really appreciate everything she's done for me, and her support and whatnot. But I wouldn't change my career choice just because of the schedule and whatnot.
Did the guys on the boat give any shit about Jody?
Oh yeah, I get all kinds of crap about it.
The very first time I stepped on a boat, I was just a tourist really, shoreside rolls. But I heard about Jody like out the chute. So how soon did you hear about Jody when you were working out there?
Well, probably just a couple trips in. I stayed on the same boat, so they kind of let in about Jody, and then they just let it go after a couple weeks when they realized I wasn't really bothered by any of that.
Did they ask you to fine tune the radar?
They
Anything
did.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah, they said go calibrate the radar, and luckily I had a deckhand that was he cared enough to stop me before I did. You know, I was doing what I was told, but and basically put on your tin hat and go stand on top of that load out there, and we'll tell you when you can come back. But no, I didn't go through all that.
And another guest told me that his captain told him to go get the key from the lockmaster when they
Yep.
were going through. You got that too?
Yeah, we got the key for the lock master, and wheel wash samples. I was told to go get a couple wheel wash samples, but I didn't go for that one. You know, at that time I already had enough from the lock master and the radar calibrating. But
Did you at least learn proper procedure for collecting wheel wash samples?
well, yeah, you tie the bucket off and um, tie the bucket off. That way you don't lose your bucket in the river. And be sure to keep 3 points of contact. That way you get the proper wheel wash samples. Make sure it's clean water, because if it's too dirty, you'll have to get another one.
Well, that kind of wraps up the normal questions here. It is kind of a short one, but that's all right. Tell me, in your young career here, just a couple of years in, do you see this as your life now?
Absolutely. River's in my blood. I don't think I can let go of it now. Um, like I said, as far as the engine room, I plan on spending several years in the engine room. And once I get and I'm content with the engine room, I want to try to get some seat time and potentially go to the boat house. It'd be really cool. I just want to learn the entire boat. I want to see it from everybody's point of view. I've worked on deck. You know, I'm not gonna say a whole lot because I was very fortunate and was able to get towards my career choice a little sooner than maybe some others. But I would like to see from the wheelhouse's perspective as well.
And what would you say to new kids coming up?
Um, Put in the work, and this industry will treat you very, very well. As far as I'm concerned, it's done me well. Pays my bills, supports my hobbies and my habits. You know, and it can be a very good career for anyone.
I think that'll do it, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. You too. This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.